Yo, how's it going guys? Welcome back to a new video. In today's video, we shall be focusing on piercing power. In the previous video, we explained armor penetration, and you can find that video on the top right corner of your screen. But today, what we shall be doing is, we shall define piercing power, and we shall also explain what density is. And at the same time, we shall look at some different scenarios that involve shooting through walls or objects. And after that, we shall talk about how it is possible to shoot through shields and force fields. And finally, we shall quickly go through some of the heroes that benefit more from having a very high piercing power, or the heroes that need piercing power the most. And without wasting any time, let's get straight into the video. And starting off, let's define what piercing power is. Piercing power is a measure of the ability of your bullets to penetrate obstacles and walls. And when you talk about obstacles, that also includes heroes. So all those cars that you see on the map, boxes, tables, and heroes, all those are obstacles. We have to note that obstacles and walls have different densities. Density is basically a parameter that determines how difficult it is to penetrate an obstacle or a wall. The way it works is, if the primary weapon piercing power of the hero is less than or equal to the density of the obstacle or wall, the bullet will not go through. But if the primary weapon piercing power is greater than the density of the object or the wall, then the bullet will go through and the density will be subtracted from the piercing power. The damage done by the hero will be in proportion to the remaining piercing power. I'll give an example. If you have a hero with a piercing power of 10 and they are shooting through a wall with a density of 7, let's imagine this hero is doing a damage of 1,000, just for easy math. To get the damage that this hero would do to one enemy behind the wall, you would have to subtract the density, which is 7, from the piercing power of the hero, which is 10, and that would leave you with 3. And then you would get 3 out of the initial piercing power of the hero and multiply that by the damage, and you'd end up with 300. So that means if a hero that does 1,000 damage shoots through a wall with a density of 7, and if we consider that this hero has a piercing power of 10, the final damage on an enemy behind the wall will be reduced by 70%, and that means this hero will do only a damage of 300. So, to make it simple, every time a bullet goes through a wall or an obstacle or even a hero, it does less damage to the other heroes that it hits, after going through those obstacles. So that's the basic explanation of piercing power and density. And then let us look at different scenarios or examples which will help you understand density and piercing power better. Every map on which you see this thick wall, this very thick wall, its density is 20. You want to avoid shooting through these very thick walls because you're going to do very little damage to the enemy behind the wall. And then we also have to note that the density of these different obstacles, by obstacles, as I explained earlier, I mean these cars that you see on the map, the different boxes, the tables. The density of these obstacles ranges from 4 to 40. So it is wise for you to not shoot through any obstacles. So for example, in this scenario, you can either shoot through the obstacle and the wall, or you can take up a different position and just shoot through the wall only. The density of the wall is obviously less than the density of the wall plus the density of the object. That means it's obviously wiser to shoot in this position whereby you're not shooting through an object. And then the next point which we have here is heroes have density 2 and it ranges from 4 to 11. 4 being the density for SMGs and 11 being the density for tanks. That means smart enemies can basically hide behind other heroes because, as we explained earlier, when the bullets go through any obstacle, even if it's a hero, the density of the object is subtracted from the piercing power of the hero, and if the piercing power is more, the bullet will go through but it will do less damage. If the piercing power is less than the density, then the bullet will not go through and hence will stay in the hero. That means any enemy hiding behind that hero will not be hit. And then in this next part of the video, we shall explain how shields work and how shooting through a shield would work. Now, shields and force fields go hand in hand. Shields can be found on heroes like Bastion, Hurricane and Angel, and force fields can be found on Blot and Satoshi. Now, we have to note that if you go to the abilities and you see the shield ability on every single hero and also the force field ability on every single hero, you realize that it's the same durability. All shields and force fields have a durability of 28, which means any hero that doesn't have a piercing power above 28 will not be able to shoot through the shield. That means to shoot through the shield, you have to make sure your piercing power is higher than 28. And currently in the game, the only hero that can shoot through these shields and force fields is Slayer. As long as you have a high piercing power on Slayer, and as long as that piercing power is higher than the durability of the enemy's shield that you're firing at, the bullet will go through the shield and will do a reduced damage to the enemy. I guess that's it for the explanation on shields. Let's look at the heroes that need piercing power the most. The first category of heroes that need piercing power the most are the heroes that shoot through walls using thermal vision. And we have only two heroes that do this, that is Slayer and Levi. This is quite straightforward. Anytime you use the thermal vision ability, you shoot through walls, and as we discussed earlier, these walls have density. So you're gonna do less damage to the enemies behind these walls if you have a low piercing power. And worst case scenario is if your piercing power is too low, then your bullets will not be able to go through some of these walls. So definitely piercing power is very important for Slayer and Levi. And then the other hero that relies on piercing power a lot is Bertha. Bertha's ability, as we all know, allows her to shoot in all directions, and her bullets will go through many walls. So if she has a low piercing power, then she's not going to be able to shoot through some of the thick walls, which will not be very ideal. So you might find yourself having to switch positions to find walls which you can shoot through. And the other hero that kind of benefits from a lot of piercing power is Leviathan. Leviathan is also another hero that shoots through walls a lot of the times, and even when an enemy is out of sight, his gun will continue to fire bullets, and these bullets always go through the walls. So it definitely helps to have a high piercing power on Leviathan. And an honorable mention here would be Blot, simply because there are some times when you fire a shot and two enemies are in the line of that shot. So if the piercing power is low, the first enemy will take the damage, and then the damage will be reduced for the second enemy behind the first enemy. So the higher your piercing power on Blot, the more chances you have to take out two enemies who are in line if you fire a shot straight through both of them. Yeah, but that's not very important because it happens once in a while. Yeah, I guess that's it for the heroes that need piercing power the most. Yeah, and that's it for today's video. To summarize it in one statement, what you have to know is the higher your piercing power, the more damage you will do to enemies who are behind walls, because it will be less likely for walls and obstacles to stop your bullets. That's it for today's video. Stay tuned for more videos, and I will see you in the next one. Peace. You move slow and I move fast.